This book begins with a simple claim: emotional intelligence has entered a new generation. Call it EI 3.0. Where earlier models taught you to notice your feelings and label them, EI 3.0 is an operational upgrade, a practical software layer for the human system that turns awareness into deliberate influence and reliable resilience. It moves you from passive recognition, I feel angry, to generative empathy, I can hear that anger and design a useful next move. If you want to lead people, guide teams, or stay steady when stakes rise, the practices in this book are meant to become part of how you work and how you show up. This book is written for a specific reader: a busy man who leads in work and life, a professional used to responsibility and decisions, someone who wants influence that feels clean and ethical rather than manipulative. You might be a founder, a manager, an experienced individual contributor who is always on in meetings, negotiations, or at the kitchen table. You appreciate tools that are fast, repeatable, and measurable. You want frameworks that scale with time and stress, not fads that vanish when life gets busy. If that's you, you'll find language in these pages designed to be direct, applied, and immediately useful. Use the book like a training program, not a textbook. Read widely, practice narrowly. Each chapter closes with short exercises that take between 30 seconds and 15 minutes. Do the micro practices in the moment they are meant for. The 60-second body scan before a meeting, the 2-minute breath before a difficult call, the 5-second social scan when you enter a room. Keep a small notebook or a simple notes app dedicated to EI 3.0. I recommend 3 rituals: a morning intention, 1 sentence, a midday check, 3 quick lines, and an evening reflection, 3 answers. What worked, what didn't, 1 experiment for tomorrow. Use a visible timer for short practices, your phone, a kitchen timer, or a physical timer on your desk. Checklists are your friend. A tiny, repeatable checklist before conversations will prevent drift. This book is deliberately formatted so you can narrate aloud for practice sessions, record short audio prompts for daily reminders, or clip exercises into short videos for a training library. Begin now with the foundation, the 60-second body scan. It is the single simplest practice you will use again and again. Sit or stand comfortably. Set a timer for 60 seconds. Close your eyes if it feels safe. Take 1 breath in and out to settle. Bring attention to the top of your head and slowly move your attention down through your face, neck, shoulders, chest, belly, hands, and legs. Notice areas of tension, heat, cold, or dullness. Name the most prominent sensation in 1 word. For example, tightness, buzzing, sinking. Notice whether that sensation has intensity on a scale from 1 to 10. Breathe toward that area for 2 slow breaths and imagine giving permission to be as it is for this minute. If a thought interrupts, it will gently re-anchor to the body. When the timer rings, open your eyes and write 1 line in your notebook. Main sensation plus intensity plus 1 tiny action: breathe, shift posture, drink water. That's it. 60 seconds. Repeat it 3 times a day for 2 weeks, and you will begin to see patterns in where stress lives in your body and how quickly you can calm it. Before you start the program, you will want a baseline, a checkpoint so you can measure progress. Record these simple metrics today and again at the end of each week. 1. Average reaction time to emotional triggers in seconds. 2. Subjective energy after typical meetings, rate 1 to 10. And 3. Number of overheat incidents per week. Count any interaction where you felt you lost composure or acted impulsively. To measure reaction time, choose 1 common, mild trigger you notice in your work. For example, criticism in a meeting or an unexpected deadline. When the trigger happens, start a stopwatch or note the second on your phone, and stop it when you first notice your body or voice move toward expression. The number is your reaction time. Energy after meetings is a quick self-score. Right after meeting, ask yourself, on a scale of 1 to 10, How energized or drained am I? For overheating incidents, simply count the days you felt you crossed your own line. Log these metrics in the same notebook you use for the scans. This book is practical above all. You will not find armchair theory here, without tools attached. Each chapter builds a single skill and offers micro exercises that can be narrated, recorded, timed, and repeated. Where some guides on emotional intelligence stop at empathy, EI 3.0 asks a second question. What useful change follows from my understanding? That is a move from empathy to generative empathy, from being moved by someone's state to creating a small, meaningful response that improves the situation. Influence without exploitation, resilience without numbness. Those are the ethical goals. A quick note about how to work with the material in production context. The exercises are intentionally short, so they are audio-friendly. Read a practice aloud and time it. You'll find most fit inside a 30 to 60-second track suitable for pre-meeting rituals. When you record, leave a few seconds of silence between instruction and practice for people to move. For video, break chapters into 90 to 180-second clips that teach one micro skill and demonstrate it. These formats help the teachings embed into daily routines. Finally, begin with an attitude of experiment. EI 3.0 privileges small, verifiable changes over dramatic promises. Try practice for a week, measure the predefined metric, and then iterate. Keep careful, kind records. You're not grading yourself for perfection. You are gathering data to design better habits. If you do the 60-second scan 3 times a day, record your checkpoint metrics, and follow the tiny experiments in the coming chapters, you will not merely feel more aware. You'll become someone who can guide the emotional climb of a room, a team, or a relationship with steadiness and moral clarity. That is a promise of EI 3.0, not just feeling more, but doing something wise with what you feel. Chapter 1. Awareness Plus is not a new meditation fad. It's a recalibration of what we mean by noticing. Traditional mindfulness trains a posture of open, non-judging attention. That's necessary, but insufficient for people who need to operate under pressure and move groups. We need a version of awareness that's faster, contextual, and decision-oriented. Call it Awareness Plus. It keeps the clear, non-reactive stance of mindfulness while adding 3 pragmatic layers. Quick signal detection, immediate context mapping, and a tiny action that closes a loop. The aim is not to become a saint of stillness. It's to become reliably readable of yourself and of the situation. In the small windows that matter, start with the idea of a signal. A signal is anything your body or the environment gives you. A flush in your face, a tightening in the jaw, a raised voice in a room, someone crossing their arms. A trigger is an internal event that hooks that signal. A remembered humiliation, a deadline, a belief about respect. A scenario is a narrative your brain assembles out of those signals and triggers. They're attacking me or I'm going to fail. Awareness Plus trains you to see the loop. Signal left right arrow trigger left right arrow scenario. Interrupting the loop at any point gives you power. Notice the signal. Question the trigger. Rewrite the scenario. The simplest practical tool is the 60-second body scan. You already know it from the introduction, but now make it sharper. Sit where you are. Set a timer for 60 seconds and orient toward one discrete signal. Throat tightness, stomach sinking, hands clenching. Put a single word to out loud. Say it in a calm phrase. Tightness. Then ask one quick contextual question. What likely happened in the last 30 seconds to make this signal appear? Answer in one clause. Finally, choose one tiny action you can do right away. Breathe, shift your feet, uncross your arms, stand. That's the whole loop. Notice, name, contextualize, act. Repeat it fast and small, and you practice Awareness Plus. Another technique is to name the emotion aloud. It feels awkward at first, But the science of speech shows naming shifts the brain's processing from reactive to reflective circuits. Don't narrate, name. A single word label said softly in your head or out loud will reduce escalation. Annoyed, tight, ashamed. Combine it with the scan. You'll find that naming often collapses the drama you were building in your head. The context map is a portable tool for making triggers visible. Draw 3 columns on a small card or the back of a meeting agenda. Signal, trigger, scenario. When you feel moved, jot the signal, guess the trigger, even if it's messy, and write the instant scenario the mind produced. On the reverse, write 3 alternative scenarios that will be less charged and more constructive, not because they're the absolute truth, but because rehearsing alternatives gives your brain a short circuit out of automatic escalation. Practice this pattern across the day. Start with 3 scans: morning after your coffee, midday before your biggest meeting, and evening after you shut your laptop. Keep the entries minimal. Signal 1 word name, trigger guess 1 tiny action. That minimal friction is what makes a habit stick. Here's a compact checklist to use when emotion spikes and you need a momentary diagnosis. 1. What's the dominant bodily signal? 2. What word names it? 3. What immediate thought or story followed the signal? 4. What past event could be priming this reaction? 5. What is 1 2-breath action I can take now? Answer these fast. The point is speed and clarity, not perfect analysis. A practical daily exercise. 3 times each day run the 60-second scan. Name the emotion aloud and add 1 line to your journal. Time, signal plus intensity, 1 to 10. Trigger guess 1 action taken and 1 short result. After a week, you'll have a small data set that shows where stress lives, what situations reliably light you up, and which tiny actions actually cool things down. Awareness Plus is an amplifier. It turns tiny signals into useful data, so you can choose a response that matches the situation instead of reacting on autopilot. Chapter 2. Energy is the primitive language of emotion. Before words, before thoughts. Your system communicates in activation and depletion, in muscle tone, in breath tempo. Learning to regulate energy is not about numbing or polishing feelings. It's about learning 3 practical modes and reliable switches between them: activation, stabilization, and direction. Activation is useful when you need focus or assertiveness. Stabilization is a calm, semi-return to when the system threatens to tip. Direction is where you steer that regulated energy into an action that serves others and your goals. Begin with a simple mental model of switching. Activation is a pulse, a rise in heart rate, a tightening that readies action. Stabilization is a braking system, breath, posture, a grounding gesture. Direction is a guiding hand, a plan of 2 words you can say to yourself, ask and listen, or a small behavioral instruction you can use in conversation. The practice is learning swift moves that reliably flip you from one mode to another. Breath is the most efficient control knob. The 4-4-8 protocol is straightforward. Inhale for 4 counts. Hold for 4 counts. Exhale for 8 counts. 3 rounds will lower heart rate and increase vagal tone. It's quick and evidence-informed. It creates a physiological window where the cortex can reassert control. Another pattern, box or tile breathing. Uses 4 equal segments. Inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 4, hold 4. Tile breathing is excellent when you need to steady before entering a high-stakes conversation because its predictability calms the anticipatory churn. Anchor gestures are micro-physical cues you can use anywhere. Choose a 2-second gesture that feels grounding and practice it until it becomes automatic. Press your thumb and forefinger together. Feel the knuckle of your index finger. Place both hands lightly on your lower ribs or tap your sternum twice. Use the gesture as a deliberate stabilizer when you sense rising activation. Pair the gesture with a phrase like steady or settle to create a conditioned response that speeds your stabilization. Create a gesture grid. Think of it as a small repertoire of 3 gestures for different purposes. 1 for activation, a quick palm press to the thigh to bring presence. 1 for stabilization, thumb index press with 2 slow breaths. And 1 for direction, light forehead tap while stating the 2-word intention. Practice the grid in idle moments so it becomes a reflex. On the morning of an important meeting, run a fast rehearsal. Breathe tile for 30 seconds. Perform the stabilization gesture. Whisper your 2-word direction. That tiny ritual primes body and mind to move with purpose. The key exercise here is a 2-minute breathing and posture routine before any important conversation. Stand or sit with feet grounded. Inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 8 twice. Take 2 slow, connecting breaths while aligning your shoulders and softening your jaw. Set your micro intention in 2 words. Enter the interaction with the stabilization gesture in place. That 2-minute window often prevents runaway reactivity and lets you lead from a regulated state rather than from surge. Measure progress with a simple checkpoint. The time from first noticing an emotional shift to feeling stabilized. Use a watch or phone stopwatch. When a familiar trigger arrives, start the timer at first signal and stop it when you feel your breath or posture return to baseline or when your voice steadies. Record that time daily for 1 week. Shorter times indicate your regulation tools are working. If your stabilization time is long, tighten your practice. Add 1 more daily breath set and rehearse the gesture grid 3 times. Energy regulation also needs boundaries with energy drains. Part of the work is scheduling recovery. Short ritualized pauses after intense meetings, brief walks, or a 2-minute hydrating break. These micro-recoveries reset baseline energy and reduce the cumulative load that makes regulation difficult. Track energy after sessions, a quick subjective score 1 to 10, and notice patterns. If you're consistently below a 6 after meetings, adjust the meeting structure or your role in it. Effective energy regulation is also about environmental design. Finally, use an experiment mindset. Try the 2-minute routine before 3 important interactions this week. Log the stabilization time each time, and note if your influence or clarity improved. Energy regulation is simple to describe and deceptively hard to automate without repetition. The work is practice. Small, repeatable, measurable. Over time, the switch from activation to stabilization will become as second nature as checking your watch, and you will bring a steadier, more intentional energy wherever influence matters. Chapter 3. You rarely react to raw reality. You react to a story your mind constructs about reality. Fast, convincing, and usually partial. That story is the doorway between stimulus and feeling. 2 people can witness the exact same sentence in a meeting and leave feeling entirely different. One energized, the other wounded. The difference isn't the words. It's the narrative they ran to explain those words. Learning to control narrative is not about lying to yourself or becoming inauthentic. It is about noticing the mental scripts you habitually run, testing them, and where useful, choosing a new script that produces clearer thinking and better behavior. Narrative control is practice in moving from reactive interpretation to generative meaning-making. Most narratives operate on 3 levels. The emotional narrative is the first impulse, loud, fast, and loaded with meaning. They ignore me because they don't respect my work, or I was mocked, I'm incompetent. The neutral narrative strips the charge down to observable facts without added drama. I spoke for 2 minutes. No one interrupted. The meeting moved on to the next agenda item. The constructive narrative keeps the facts but adds a practical frame that points to possibility. They didn't respond immediately. I can follow up with concise email highlighting one clear action. The goal is not to eliminate the emotional narrative. It exists and carries information, but to move quickly through it to neutral description, and then to a constructive next step. A simple, repeatable technique I use with leaders is the 3 versions rewrite. When an event lands on you, a terse email, a terse comment, a changed tone in a colleague. Write 3 short versions of the same event. First, give the emotional version in raw, honest language. Don't sanitize it. Write what your mind offers first. That's the signal. Second, write the neutral version. List only what you can verify, in short phrases, no adjectives that imply motive. Third, write a constructive version. What useful interpretation and immediate action would reduce harm, create clarity, or move things forward? This third version doesn't have to be optimistic. It must be practical. Over time, the muscle of moving from first impulse to practical option becomes faster. You stop being hijacked by the initial narrative and begin to shape the interaction. The inner voice is your constant narrator, and it follows rules that can be changed. Here are 5 practical rules for inner speech that reduce needless escalation and create leverage. 1. Prefer verbs of behavior over verbs of character. Replace their selfish with they interrupted twice. Behavior is changeable. Character is sticky and blaming. 2. Use present tense observation for facts and conditional language for motives. Say they didn't answer, instead of they ignore me on purpose. Motives are guesses. Conditional framing keeps you curious. 3. Give yourself one prescriptive sentence after any strong emotional thought. If true, next step is X. This turns heat into a project. 4. Limit catastrophic worst-case language to a single sentence and then force a probability estimate. Is this 10% likely or 90% likely? Shrink the dramatic space. 5. Treat the inner critic like one data point, not the CEO of meaning-making. Ask it why it cares and whether its job is protection or prevention. The practical form I teach for immediate use is the 3-line transformer: emotion, fact, action. When you feel jolted, take 30 seconds and fill the template. Line 1, name the immediate emotion in one word: hurt, annoyed, dismissed. Line 2, write the observable fact in one short sentence. At 10:02, I said X. The group moved to the next item without comment. Line 3, write one tiny constructive action you can take in the next 5 to 30 minutes. Send a 1-paragraph follow-up clarifying my point and asking for feedback. The simplicity of the template is the point. It forces you to name the feeling, anchor it to evidence, and choose a practical step. When practiced, it collapses time between feeling and useful response. Here's a short example to make it concrete. You speak at a meeting and someone laughs shortly after you finish. The emotional narrative: they laugh, they think I'm stupid, everyone knows I don't belong here. The neutral narrative: a laugh occurred after my comment. 3 people smiled. 2 people continued the topic. The constructive narrative: the laugh may have been an awkward reaction to surprise or a private joke unrelated to me. I will email the host to ask if there was a misunderstanding and offer a clarifying point. In 3 lines: emotion, embarrassed, fact, laugh after my comment, no direct critique. Action: clarify the point in a short follow-up and invite input. Notice how the energy shifts from internal collapse to an outward moving, controllable step. Daily practice matters more than clever insights. Each day, pick one interaction you felt was significant. Even small incidents count, and write the 3 versions. Keep entries short. The aim is habit, not therapy sessions. Over a week, you will begin to see recurring story patterns. The scripts you automatically choose for certain people, the places where your imagination tends to escalate, and the types of evidence you routinely ignore. That pattern recognition is the raw material for change. There is a social dimension to narrative control too. Our stories are contagious. Your interpretation of an event informs how you tell it, and how you tell it shapes other people's feelings about it. If you want to shift the team, learn to tell the constructive story out loud. Instead of broadcasting the emotional narrative, we were disrespected. Model the neutral facts and a practical next step. The decision move without input from 2 stakeholders. Let's pause and collect brief feedback by noon. This approach preserves credibility, reduces drama, and invites collaboration. A final note on authenticity. Controlling narrative is not suppressing truth, but choosing which truth to act on. Emotional narratives often carry clues about unmet needs and boundaries. Use them as data, not destiny. If the emotional version consistently points to a pattern, repeated interruptions, a colleague's passive-aggressive tone, your constructive response might be boundary work, not reframing. Narrative control gives you the calm to see which tool to use: a rewrite, a boundary, or a direct conversation. Narrative control is one of the most leverage-rich skills in emotional architecture because it lives upstream of action. When you learn to slow the storytelling just enough to test one alternative, you turn reflex into design. The result is influence that feels steady and decisions that come from clarity rather than from the loudest inner voice. Practice the 3 versions rewrite. Use the 3-line transformer in moments of heat, and make a habit to turn emotional signal into procedural response. Over time, the room for misinterpretation shrinks. Your responses become more useful, and your influence grows, because people learn you bring calm, clarity, and practical options to ambiguous moments. Chapter 4. Boundaries are not walls. They are the infrastructure that lets influence move without collapse. Think of boundaries as rules you set for how your time, attention, and energy are treated. Clear lines that protect your capacity and make your presence predictable and trustworthy. People who have strong boundaries don't shut others out. They make it possible for collaboration to happen without constant friction. Boundaries increase resilience because they reduce the friction that consumes your bandwidth. Fewer small violations, fewer surprise drains, fewer moments where you must scramble to recover. Boundaries come in 3 practical flavors: time boundaries, when you're available and how long you'll engage; energy boundaries, what level of emotional or cognitive load you'll accept; and communication boundaries, how people may contact you, what tone is acceptable, and what information you will or won't discuss in certain contexts. All 3 interact. A time boundary: I don't take calls after 7 p.m. supports an energy boundary. I reserve evenings to recover so I can lead well tomorrow. A communication boundary: I expect concise requests with a clear decision point, reduces cognitive overhead, and preserves focus. People often avoid boundaries because they fear conflict, rejection, or being seen as rigid. The paradox is that poorly stated or absent boundaries create the very conflicts they fear. Vague availability invites unreasonable demands, and unspoken limits lead to resentment. The goal is to state your limits clearly, briefly, and without drama so others can adapt. When you speak with calm clarity, you reduce the emotional charge and invite cooperation. You don't need to be harsh to be firm. Use short, plain sentences that name the boundary and offer a simple, pragmatic alternative when appropriate. Don't over-explain. Clarity is a kindness. Here are 6 short scripts you can use and adapt. Use them in neutral tone, with steady posture and without apology. I can't take this now. Can we schedule 30 minutes tomorrow at 10? I'm not available after 7 p.m. for work calls. If it's urgent, send a text and I'll respond by 8. I'm happy to discuss feedback. Let's keep it to specific behaviors so I can act on it. I don't respond to messages while I'm in meetings. I'll reply within 2 hours after the meeting. I won't accept interruptions during focus time. If it's critical, please use the urgent tag. I won't engage in public critique. If you have feedback, tell me privately and we'll work it out. Practice these scripts aloud until they feel natural. Keep tone even and neutral. The words matter less than the steady delivery. Pair the script with a small ritual, an inhale and an exhale, a soft place in the hands on your desk, so your body anchors a boundary with calm. There will be times when boundary setting meets pushback. Prepare a secondary short statement that names a rebuttal, restates your limit, and either offers a consequence or a next step. For example, I understand this is urgent, but I can't take the call now. If you call anyway, I'll pick up only for real emergencies. Or, if you need an immediate decision, escalate to project lead. Otherwise, let's set a time to talk tomorrow. Consequences should be proportional and enforceable. Don't invent penalties you won't carry out. Consistency is what teaches people to respect your line. Boundaries also require internal work. Notice the small internal permissions you give. I'll stay late. This once becomes a habit. I'll always stay late. Use a 1-week test. Try enforcing a boundary for 7 days and log what happens. You'll be surprised how much of the pushback is a test that fades when you hold steady. If a boundary triggers guilt, write down the actual cost of not having the boundary. Less focus. Worse sleep, more resentment, and compare. Often the cost outweighs the discomfort of saying no. A simple weekly exercise will make boundary engineering practical. On Sunday evening, draw 2 columns. Allow/do not allow. Under allow. List what you will grant yourself and others this week. Brief check-ins. 30-minute calls. A late dinner on Friday. Under do not allow. List what you will refuse. Unscheduled calls after 6 p.m. Working through weekends. Meetings without agendas. For each item, write 1 sentence of implementation, how you will communicate it, and 1 fallback if someone pushes. Keep it visible. Put on your desk or phone background. Review it midweek and at week's end. The aim is not rigidity but intentionality. You design where your influence is deployed. When you create boundaries for teams, involve simple norms rather than unilateral edicts. A short team ritual, 30 seconds at the start of meetings to confirm the agenda and expected outcome, reduces boundary violations. A shared rule like no meeting longer than 45 minutes without a clear decision point gives permission to interrupt politely and resets expectations. Leaders who model boundaries create cultures where people can recharge and perform without constant drama. There are ethical limits to boundary work. Boundaries are not an excuse for stonewalling, manipulation, or emotional negligence. If a colleague or family member is in real crisis, your boundary can flex to allow genuine help. The point of boundary engineering is to make your generosity sustainable, not to avoid necessary discomfort. Be willing to tighten or relax lines based on genuine need, but do so with awareness and choice. Finally, test your boundaries in low-stakes situations first. Practice saying the 6 scripts in small interactions, declining a minor request, asking for meeting clarity, switching off notifications for an evening. Notice how your body responds and how others adapt. Keep a short log. Situation, script used, result. After 3 weeks, you'll notice 2 things. Your discomfort will shrink and your capacity for sustained influence and calm will rise. Boundaries are the architecture of durable presence. When you design them well, you free yourself to lead with less friction and more clarity. Chapter 5. Social calibration is the skill of reading a room and matching your presence to the reality you find there. Not to perform a mask, but to tune your impact so it lands where it can be useful. If awareness plus is about noticing what's happening inside you, social calibration is about noticing what's happening around you and deciding how to show up so others can do their best work with you in the room. The faster and cleaner you calibrate, the more influence you have with less force. Start from the simplest signals: posture, facial tension, breathing rhythm, and tempo of speech. These are the low bandwidth channels that carry the most honest information. People often try to read intentions from words when a body is a far more reliable source. When you enter a meeting, the first 30 seconds give you a snapshot: who is leaning forward, who keeps their arms crossed, whose breathing is shallow, who is looking down at notes. These cues tell you the current distribution of attention and comfort. Your job in those first moments is not to fix everything. It is to map where energy is and decide the smallest intervention that will move it productively. Calibrating means choosing a role and a micro strategy. There are three practical roles you will recognize quickly: the dominant, the neutral, and the supportive. The dominant holds forward pressure, higher volume, firmer posture, decisive language. Use this role when direction is missing and timely decisions are required. The neutral carries balance, steady voice, measured pacing, and clarifying questions. Use this role when you need buy-in or to lower tension. The supportive listens and amplifies, open posture, soft voice, short affirmations. Use this role when you need to surface information or when people are emotionally activated. None of these roles is morally superior. Effective leaders move among them deliberately. You can calibrate your role with three small practices that are quick to deploy. First, the 5-second scan. As you enter a conversation, take 5 seconds to silently note one dominant posture, one anxious posture, one person who seems unavailable. That's it. The scan is an analysis. It's a map. Second, the micro-response bank. Have 3 short responses you can use immediately depending on what the scan shows. If people are closed, use an open question that invites small contribution. What's one thing we need to get clear on? If tension is high, lower your tempo and say, let's take 2 deep breaths and go slow. If people are distracted, create a tiny anchor. If we can decide X in 5 minutes, we'll keep moving. Third, the adaptation strategy. Decide on one visible behavioral tweak for the next 5 minutes. Softer tone, more eye contact, or fewer words. Small changes change the field. Part of social calibration is learning the micro skills of listening that actually change outcomes. Notice the difference between passive listening and calibrated listening. Passive listening hears words. Calibrated listening hears rhythm, interruption patterns, and what is not being said. Listen for the person who consistently gets cut off, for the pause that follows a courageous idea, for the quickening breath before someone speaks. Reflect back not just content but stance. I hear you saying X, and you sound cautious about Y. Naming stance reduces emotional ambiguity and makes it easier for others to move. Influence in rooms also follows simple timing rules. Intervene too early and you can shut down discovery. Intervene too late and you lose momentum. Use a default timing heuristic. Observe for 45 seconds once the main topic appears. Then either ask a short clarifying question or offer a one-line proposal. That short delay gives people space to contribute and shows you aren't rushing to control the room. It also gives you better data for precision intervention. Real situations illuminate how social calibration works in practice. Consider 3 cases. Case 1, the call. You dial into a global stand-up where 3 colleagues are on video and several are on the phone. The first person speaks fast and is clearly under time pressure. Others are briefly silent or distracted. Use the 5-second scan. Note pacing, who is present in the volume. Switch to a neutral role. Slow your speech slightly. Name the tempo you notice. I hear we're short on time. Can we capture 2 quick blockers? And offer concise agenda. 2 items for minutes each. This small framing reduces friction and creates a clear path to closure. If someone keeps interrupting, acknowledge the urgency and propose a follow-up channel for detailed points, so the group can keep moving. Case 2, the meeting. You enter a room where one person dominates, others are guarded, and one team member keeps checking their phone. The dominant role won't help. It escalates. Start with supportive calibration. Sit slightly forward with open palms. Make eye contact with the quieter members and ask a focused invitation. I'd like 3 quick reactions, 1 line each, to hear who hasn't spoken. The invitation pulls up hidden voices and communicates that contribution matters. If the dominant pushes back, use a neutral frame. We'll hear the 3 and then we'll return to your point. This small structural move reduces the dominance dynamic without public conflict and increases the room's information quality. Case 3, the conflict. Two colleagues have sharply different proposals, and tone has hardened. Physical signals: faster breathing, clipped speech, smaller gestures. Don't try to fix the disagreement from a dominant stance. That risks fueling defensiveness. Calm the field with a brief pause intervention. Ask everyone to close their laptops and take 30 seconds of breath together. Then invite the parties to state their single most important outcome in one sentence. The pause lowers sympathetic activation. The one-sentence rule narrows drama into actionable terms. Follow that with neutral calibration. Restate each outcome succinctly, find overlap, and propose a micro-experiment to test both ideas quickly rather than arguing at length. Conflict becomes manageable when you slow the physiology and simplify the decision path. Micro-responses matter. They're the short phrases that perform work without drama. Examples: help me understand the priority here. Pause. Tell me the desired outcome. That's helpful. Can you say one line about the risk? Train a bank of 8 to 12 micro-responses that match different calibration needs and rehearse them so they come out naturally. The aim is to replace aimless commentary with precise, small moves that shift the field. Calibration also includes nonverbal leadership. Voice, pause, and eye contact are instruments. Lowering your pitch by 1 or 2 tones and slowing your cadence by 10 to 20% during a moment of tension tends to invite attention rather than resistance. Maintain neutral facial expression while your voice conveys steadiness. This combination reduces emotional contagion and makes it easier for others to recenter. Practice speaking a single sentence in 2 tempos, normal and then deliberately slower. Record yourself once a week and notice where small slowing increases clarity. Daily practice is simple and quick. Each day, do a 5-second scan 3 times: before your first meeting, midday before a team call, and before your last interaction of the day. Write a 1-line calibration plan each time: which role you'll try and 1 micro-response you'll use. At the end of the day, note 1 calibration win and 1 missed opportunity. Over a month, you will see patterns: which rooms you default to dominant in, which colleagues trigger supportive shrinking, and where a small micro-response could have changed the outcome. A final point: calibration is not about being liked. It is about being readable and useful. If you constantly shift to placate everyone, you lose clarity. Calibrate with an aim. What useful state are you trying to create? Decide your aim before you enter. Use the 5-second map to choose a role and commit to 1 small behavioral tweak. Influence follows. When people find you steady, purposeful, and tuned to the group's needs, they will follow. Not because you force them, but because you made it easier for them to move together. Social calibration is the craft of making collective motion possible with less friction and more integrity. Chapter 6. Voice and pause are the soft instruments of authority. You can say the same sentence in 5 different ways and produce 5 different results. Faster buy-in, defensiveness, boredom, curiosity, or surrender. Voice shapes perceived competence. Pause shapes perceived control. Together, they let you influence without force. This chapter teaches simple, high-return vocal mechanics and the art of strategic silence, so your words land with clarity and consequence. Start with physiology. Your voice is powered by breath and shaped by resonance. When you speak from shallow chest breath and a tight throat, your tone becomes thin and reactive. When you speak from supported diaphragmatic breathing and open resonance, a relaxed jaw, a soft palate, your voice gains weight and stamina. The first practical move is to re-anchor speaking to exhale control. Inhale fully to the diaphragm, then speak on a controlled exhale. That single habit reduces strain, deepens timbre, and slows your tempo automatically. 3 simple vocal drills to practice daily. Hum and slide 1 to 2 minutes. Hum gently at a comfortable pitch, then slide up and down a minor third. Focus on vibration, the mask of the face, nose, cheekbones. This increases resonance and warms the voice without strain. Controlled exhale sentences, 3 to 5 minutes. Take a full diaphragmatic breath and speak a short sentence while releasing breath steadily until the sentence ends. Repeat with variations in length. That trains breath support and prevents clipped, breathy delivery. Slow word drill, 30 to 60 seconds. Choose one strong word to use often, e.g., decide, next, listen. Say it very slowly, stretching the vowels, then let a 1 to 2 second silence follow. The contrast trains you to place weight on words and to use the space after them. Timbre and pitch. Lowering your pitch slightly and reducing upward inflection, uptalk, increases authority. Don't force a fake baritone. Instead, relax the larynx and lengthen vowel sounds. A practical trick. Speak a sentence, then say it again an octave lower by imagining the sound originating a bit lower in your chest. Practice dropping one tone, not an entire range. Aim for clarity over deepness. Resonance beats force gravity. Tempo and pacing matter more than volume. Faster speech signals nervousness. Too slow speech can become ponderous. The useful zone is 10 to 20% slower than your conversational norm when stakes are high. Combine slower tempo with varying cadence. Mix longer sentences with very short, one-line directives to create contrast and emphasis. Pause is your invisible punctuation. It does 3 things. It gives listeners time to process. It creates curiosity, and it lets you reclaim control in heated moments. There are 3 tactical pauses to use. The anchoring pause, 1 to 2 seconds. A brief, regular pause after a key point. Use it to let a statement land. We'll move forward with plan A, pause. That means the energy pause, 2 to 5 seconds. Use a lower emotional intensity before responding. In meetings when tension rises, take 2 slow breaths and a 3-second silence before you reply. It changes physiology in the room. The invitation pause, 4 to 8 seconds. After asking an open question, stay silent. Count the seconds. People will fill the space with more thoughtful answers. Often the best contributions come after the first silence is broken. Combine voice and pause into micro-routines. Before a call or important conversation, run a 30-second prep, 2 deep diaphragmatic breaths, a 20-second hum and slide. Say your opening line slowly once, then hold a calm 10-second silence. This primes resonance and helps you begin from steadiness rather than reaction. Practical microscripts that use pause. Tough pushback. I hear that concern. 2, 3S. My read is redirecting a tangent. Good point. We'll park that. 1, 2S. Back to the decision at hand. Asking for clarity. Can you say the single outcome you most want? 4, 6S. Silence is often mistaken for weakness. It is not. It is a tool that invites information and shows confidence. If you feel awkward holding silence, use a visible gesture, place hands on the table, soften your gaze to own the pause. Recording is indispensable. Your ear and your memory lie. Do a quick voice check before and after training. Record a 30-second sample of an opening line, the same line after practice, and compare. Listen for breath support, steadiness of pitch, absence of fillers, and effective pauses. Track one simple metric weekly. Proportion of sentences that end without fillers estimate, or number of interruptions you experience during a meeting. Fewer interruptions often mean your voice landed with authority. Ethics and subtlety. Use voice and pause to clarify and invite, not to dominate or silence others. A strong timbre should create space for others, not close it. If you find you're using pause to punish dead air after someone's point, check motive and switch to an inviting pause with a neutral prompt. Many practices to build the skill. Do not skip. Daily 5-minute vocal routine. Hum and slide 1 to 2 minutes. Controlled exhale sentences 2 to 3 minutes. Pre-call 30 seconds ritual. Diaphragmatic breath times 2. Slow word, 10-second silence. Live pause challenge. In one meeting this week, use a 4-second invitation pause after question and note what happens. Check zone. Before you start a 30-day focus on voice, record 3 baseline items. Your preferred opening line, a 1-sentence reaction to disagreement, and a summary sentence about a project. Re-record weekly and note improvement in steadiness. Fewer uptalk endings and decreased filler words. Also log one behavioral outcome. Did people follow your request the first time, or did you need to repeat it? Fewer repeats equals better landings. A few final practical pointers. Relax the jaw before speaking. A soft jaw reduces sharp consonant clipping. Smile gently when appropriate. It lifts the soft palate and improves resonance. And hydrate. Avoid caffeine immediately before long speaking sessions. It tightens muscles and increases tremor. Practice aloud daily. Voice is motor skill, not just concept. Voice and pause are deceptively powerful because they operate below the level of debate. Mastering them makes you easier to listen to and harder to misread. When you combine supported breath, measured tempo, resonant timbre, and purposeful silence, your presence becomes a tool for opening space, landing ideas, and leading without force. Chapter 7. Generative empathy is empathy with a purpose. It begins with the same basic move as ordinary empathy, noticing another person's emotional state, but then takes one extra step, turning that noticed state into a practical, helpful change. Where many interpretations of empathy stop at feeling with someone, generative empathy asks, what useful option can I create right now? That extra move transforms compassion into leadership, care into results, and understanding into a lever for change. It's not softer than leadership. It's smarter. It lets you be present without being passive, warm without being lost in feelings, and influential without being manipulative. Start by treating empathy as an operational sequence you can practice. First, listen with attention long enough to identify the core felt experience, the pain, the fear, the hope. Second, reflect that experience back into distilled form so the person feels seen and understood. Third, offer one concrete, proportional action that would reduce harm or increase possibility. The action can be internal, a personal intention you commit to, or external, a small offer you voice. Keep the action simple and bounded. The point is to convert insight into a tiny experiment that tests usefulness. The formula is short and memorable. Listen, name, propose one useful action. Naming is where generative empathy shows its leverage. A single accurate label, you sound drained, that looks like anger, you're excited about this possibility, changes the brain of the person you're with. Naming shifts their processing from diffuse feeling to discrete data and invites co-regulation. Do not over-explain or psychoanalyze. A tight 2-word label plus a short clarifying sentence is usually enough. After naming, pause. Give space for correction. If the label misses, correct gently and adjust. If it lands, the person will often relax and move toward problem solving. Proposals must be small and useful. Avoid grand gestures or unsolicited fixes. The best offers follow a strict economy. One sentence, low cost to the other person, and easy to accept or decline. Examples. Would it help if I summarize a key decision in an email? If you want, I can handle this follow-up so you can finish today's deliverable. Let's try a 5-minute break and then one round of idea sharing. The aim is to reduce friction and create a forward step, not to rescue someone or take over their work. Generative empathy is about empowerment, not replacement. There is an important internal discipline to preserve authenticity. Many leaders fall into 2 traps: performative empathy, saying the right word without attention, and over-rescuing empathy, offering big fixes that relieve the immediate discomfort but remove agency. To avoid both, practice a pre-offer check. Ask yourself 3 quick questions before proposing anything. Is this my problem to solve? Is the offer proportionate? Will this preserve the other person's agency? If the answer to any is no, either hold space and name emotion without fixing or ask permission before intervening. Would you like my idea, or would you prefer I just listen right now? Generative empathy is powerful in negotiations because it converts emotional information into tactical options. In a negotiation, start by acknowledging the other party's core emotional state, stakes, fears, identity concerns. Then propose a concrete, low-cost option that tests whether alignment is possible. For instance, if a vendor sounds anxious about deadlines, name it, I hear concerns about timing, and offer a simple trial milestone that reduces a perceived risk. How about we do a short pilot deliverable in 2 weeks, so we both can see the pace? That small move preserves dignity, reduces fear, and produces data quickly. Over time, the negotiation becomes an iterative sequence of human-centered experiments rather than a static contest. In intimate conversations, generative empathy prevents escalation and deepens trust. If a partner says they feel unheard, don't counter with explanations. Name the experience. Offer small behavioral change and set a short check. I hear you feel unheard. I can try one thing tonight. I'll put my phone away during dinner and ask 2 questions about your day. Would that help? The specificity matters. It turns a vague promise into an accountable experiment. Agree a short time frame, try for 3 dinners, and reconvene to reflect. Small, measurable acts of care accumulate trust far more reliably than grand declarations. Practice makes the skill fast and subtle. Aim for 3 micro-experiments each day for 2 weeks. Each experiment is a single instance of generative empathy in which you do the full sequence. Listen, name, pause, propose one small action, then record the outcome. Keep entries short. Context, label used, offer made, result, helpful/not helpful, and 1-sentence learning. After 10 experiments, you will begin to see patterns, the types of labels that land, which offers are accepted, and the moments when silence was the right move. Use those patterns to refine your internal model. There are times when generative empathy must be withheld or modified. If someone is in acute crisis, safety and professional intervention come first. A manager offering quick fixes can be inadequate or harmful. Also, cultural differences shape how naming and offers are experienced. In some contexts, a direct label is welcome. In others, it's intrusive. Pay attention to the person and adapt. When in doubt, ask, do you want me to reflect what I hear, or do you want ideas? The question respects agency and prevents miscalibrated moves. A short mental checklist will help you decide whether to act. 1. Did I accurately perceive the emotion? 2. Is there a small offer that preserves the other's agency? 3. Can I make the offer in 1 sentence? If you can answer yes to all 3, proceed. If not, hold space and focus on naming and listening. Generative empathy scales because it creates replicable microactions across contexts. Teams that adopt this habit move faster through disagreement. Clients feel safer testing ideas, and relationships build resilience through repeated, low-cost experiments. The ethical heart of the method matters. Use it to create options and respect autonomy. When deployed well, generative empathy turns the messy data of human feeling into small, testable moves that create momentum, reduce harm, and cultivate trust. In practice, it makes influence kinder and steadier, the very conditions under which lasting leadership is built. Chapter 8. Reflection is the engine that turns experience into skill. Without it, behavior repeats. With it, behavior improves. The reflection loop is intentionally simple, so you'll do it. Event, reaction, insight, small experiment. Do this fast enough to capture useful information, and small enough that you can actually try something the next day. The goal is not self-flagellation or endless analysis. It's a lean, iterative practice that produces clearer choices and faster learning. When an event matters, a heated conversation, a surprising success, a slip in composure, a decision that didn't land, stop and log 4 things as soon as you can. First, describe the event in 2 plain sentences: what happened, who was involved. Second, name your immediate reaction in 1 word and note the dominant bodily signal: tight, rushed, drained, buoyant. Third, write 1 short insight. What pattern or trigger does this event reveal? Fourth, design 1 tiny experiment you can try next time or tomorrow that is directly targeted at that insight. Keep the experiment bounded: 1 action, 1 measurable outcome, and a short time frame, 1 to 3 days. For example, event, brief meeting where I interrupted twice. Reaction, embarrassed, jaw tight. Insight, I jump in to avoid awkward silence. Experiment, count to 2 silently before speaking the next 3 meetings. Metric, number of interruptions I make per meeting. Stop before you comfort yourself with stories. The point of the loop is to convert heat into data. Write facts first, feeling second, meaning third, and action last. When you reverse that order, you inflate causation and create endless rumination. Time box each micro-reflection to 5 minutes. If a single incident needs more work, set a longer slot, 20 minutes, later the same day or the next morning. Time boxing prevents reflection from turning into rumination. A fast daily format that fits into busy schedules is the 3-question protocol. At night, in 5 to 7 minutes, answer: 1. What happened today that mattered? 1 sentence. 2. How did I respond? And what physical signal did I notice? 1 sentence. 3. What 1 small experiment will I try tomorrow? 1 sentence. Keep these entries brief and concrete. Over a week, these micronotes form a trail you can iterate on. Patterns surface quickly when you don't let them hide in vague impressions. Weekly audits are where micro-experiments move from anecdotes to evidence. Take 20 to 30 minutes at a consistent weekly time and use a simple template. A. Top 3 events this week. Facts only. B. Dominant themes I see, 2 to 3 lines. C. Experiments run and their outcomes. What changed, measured, or possible. D. 1 hypothesis for next week. If X, then Y. E. 1 recovery strategy to protect capacity. Use your weekly audit to refuse 1 thing next week that drains energy and add 1 tiny ritual that supports learning. A 90-second breathing check before high-stakes calls, for example. Design experiments like a scientist, but smaller and kinder. Keep these rules. Make the experiment singular, 1 variable, short 1 to 3 days, measurable count, score, or observable change, and reversible. You can stop it if it makes things worse. Don't run more than 2 simultaneous experiments. Too many moving parts make learning impossible. Example experiments. Shorten my status updates to 90 seconds for 3 meetings and count how often people ask clarifying questions. Or practice the 2-breath pause before responding in 10 conversations and note how many responses I regret. After the experiment, record the result in 1 line. Success, partial, or no change, and 1 insight about why. Avoid 2 common reflection traps. The first is analysis paralysis, overcomplicating causes, and generating dozens of prescriptions. Counter it by choosing the simplest experiment you can imagine. The second is moralizing mistakes, using reflection to shame yourself. Counter that by framing each entry as data gathering. My system did X rather than I am X. Language matters. Neutral phrasing keeps the loop productive. Externalize as much as possible. Writing makes thoughts concrete and prevents replay. Use a dedicated journal, physical or digital, so you can easily search patterns. For team context, export a 1-line learning after key meetings. Event/reaction/experiment. Sharing tiny lessons normalizes reflection and accelerates collective learning without turning retrospectives into therapy sessions. Use objective micrometrics to anchor learning. Useful examples: reaction time, seconds to notice you're emotional; interruptions per meeting, subjective energy after a meeting 1 to 10; number times you applied a new script or gesture. Track the metric before and after your experiments. If you can't measure, estimate. Imperfect measurement is still better than none. Rumination is the enemy of productive reflection. When a thought loop starts, use an interrupt strategy. Schedule a focused worry slot for 10 minutes later that day and move on. If the concern still matters, address it in that slot with a reflection loop. This trick limits rumination while preserving necessary processing. Another anti-rumination habit: externalize intrusive loops into the journal with a hypothesis label and a one-sentence test. Turning a worry into a test moves it into the domain of learning. Include one social element, an accountability buddy or micro-coach. Weekly, exchange one experiment and one result with someone you trust. The social check prevents self-deception and often produces better experiments. Keep it brief: a single-line summary and one question. In teams, a 90-second learning share at the end of the week builds psychological safety and speeds adaptation. Reflection must also include rest. Use your weekly audit to schedule deliberate recovery if metrics show depletion. If your energy score post-meetings trends downward, add a recovery rule: 10-minute walks after 2 back-to-back meetings or a no-meeting window in the afternoon. Reflection without recovery produces brittle learning. You'll notice progress only when you protect capacity to practice. Finally, iterate the loop itself. Every month, reflect on your reflection: which formats worked, which experiments yielded learning, and which habits stuck. Swap out protocols that don't fit, and double down on ones that do. The meta practice of improving your reflection method is what turns occasional insight into durable competence. Small cycles, sharp experiments, and kind accountability. That is how rapid adaptation becomes routine. Chapter 9. This is a 30-day EI 3.0 bootcamp. A compact, daily map that turns the ideas you've learned into automatic, measurable habits. Each day contains a single micro-task, 5 to 15 minutes, designed to be audible, repeatable, and easy to record. The program stacks skills week by week, so small wins compound into reliable capacity. Use a journal template at the end of the chapter to log each day's short entries. Do the checkpoints on days 7, 14, 21, and 30, instructions below, and use them to adjust the next block. Week 1. Foundations, Awareness Plus and Reflection Loop, days 1 to 7. Goal: build eyes-on body awareness and start the habit of short reflection. Day 1 to 60-second body scan times 3, morning, midday, evening. Log dominant signal plus intensity, 1 to 10. 5 minutes. Day 2 to 60-second scan plus say the emotion allowed once after each scan. Journal one trigger guess. 7 minutes. Day 3. Use the context map one signal trigger scenario for one notable moment today. Write 3 alternative scenarios. 10 minutes. Day 4. 3-question protocol tonight. What mattered? How did I react? One experiment for tomorrow. 7 minutes. Day 5. Practice the 3-line transformer once, emotion, fact, action, on a small event. Send the action if relevant, email, or message. 10 minutes. Day 6. Do 3 scans and add a 1-sentence micro-experiment after the last scan. Implement it tomorrow. 7 to 10 minutes. Day 7. Checkpoint 1. Baseline measures and weekly audit, details below. 15 minutes. Week 2. Energy regulation and rituals, days 8 to 14. Goal: quick physiological levers and a recovery architecture. Day 8. 4-4-8 breathing times 3 rounds before your first meeting. Record post-meeting energy 1 to 10. 5 minutes. Day 9, tile/box breathing for times 4 times 4 times 4. 2 minutes pre-call plus choose one anchor gesture to rehearse. 7 minutes. Day 10, gesture grid practice. Rehearse activation, stabilization, direction gestures 5 times each. 8 minutes. Day 11, 2-minute posture plus breathing ritual before an important interaction. Set a 2-word direction. 6 to 8 minutes. Day 12, add 1 micro recovery. 5-minute walk or hydrating break after meeting. Log energy after meeting. 10 to 12 minutes. Day 13, do the 60-second scan immediately after 2 different meetings and note differences. 6 minutes. Day 14, checkpoint 2, measure stabilization times and weekly audit. 15 minutes. Week 3, social calibration and boundary engineering. Days 15 to 21. Goal, read the room faster and begin simple boundary experiments. Day 15 to 5-second scan before every meeting today. Write a 1-line calibration plan for each. 10-minute total. Day 16. Use 1 micro response in a meeting from your bank of 8 to 12. Note outcome. 5 to 8 minutes. Day 17. Apply 1 boundary script in a low-stake situation, e.g., I can't take this now. And log result. 7 to 10 minutes. Day 18. Practice voice and pause preps, 30 seconds ritual, plus 1 4-second invitation pause in a conversation. 8 minutes. Day 19. Use support and neutral dominant roles deliberately in 3 short interactions. Note which worked. 10 to 12 minutes. Day 20. Team norm experiment. Propose 1 simple meeting rule, e.g., agenda plus 5-minute check at midpoint. Implement or pilot. 10 to 15 minutes. Day 21. Checkpoint 3. Boundary audit and social calibration review. 15 minutes. Week 4. Narrative control, generative empathy, and integration. Days 22 to 30. Goal, move smoothly from story to action and make empathy generative. Day 22. 3 versions rewrite for 1 event. Emotional/neutral/constructive. 10 minutes. Day 23. Apply generative empathy once. Listen, name, offer 1 small action. Record outcome. 8 to 12 minutes. Day 24. Run a short reflection loop on an interaction where you felt hijacked. Invent 1 tiny experiment for next time. 7 minutes. Day 25. Use a 3-line transformer in real time, emotion, fact, action, during a meeting or call. 5 to 8 minutes. Day 26. Integrate. Perform morning scan, 2-minute breath, and 5-second social scan before your first big interaction. 10 minutes. Day 27. Run a micro experiment combining boundary plus generative empathy, e.g., state a limit, then offer an alternative. Log result, 10 to 15 minutes. Day 28. Do a full weekly audit. Top events, themes, experiments, and outcomes. 20 to 30 minutes. Day 29. Prepare a 3-question end-of-month reflection. What shifted? What stuck? 1 habit to keep. 10 minutes. Day 30. Checkpoint 4. Final measurement. Compare day 7 baseline and design next 30 days. 20 to 30 minutes. Checkpoints. What to measure and how to adjust. At each checkpoint, days 7, 14, 21, 30. Record these metrics and follow the adjustment guidance. Metrics to log, quick, consistent formats. Reaction time. Seconds from first internal signal to first outward response. Use phone stopwatch or estimate. Energy after meetings. Self-score 1 to 10 immediately after typical meetings, average across 3. Overheat incidents. Count of interactions where you felt you lost composure that week. Application of generative empathy, G. Number times you executed listen name 1 offer. Stabilization time, seconds from first signal to felt baseline after using a breath/gesture. Checkpoint interpretation and adjustments. Reaction time decreased by greater than or equal to 20%. Continue current practice and add 1 new micro-challenge, faster 3-line transformer. Reaction time unchanged or worse. Increase daily scans of 4 and add 1 extra 2-minute breath ritual before high-stakes events. Energy after meetings average below 6. Add a recovery rule, 10-minute break after 2 meetings, and shorten back-to-back meetings where possible. Overheat incidents, 2/week. Tighten boundary experiments. Practice saying, I need 2 breaths aloud, and run the 2-breath pause before responding. G applications, 3/week. Schedule prompts, phone reminder. To try G in low-stakes conversations, aim for 1 per day. Stabilization time still long. Practice adjust your grid twice daily and measure again in 3 days. Weekly audit template. Use at days 7, 14, 21, 28. A. Top 3 events, facts only. B. Dominant themes I observed. C. Experiment I ran and result. Success/partial/no change. 1-line evidence. D. 1 thing to stop next week and 1 thing to start. E. Recovery action scheduled. Yes/no plus what. Journal formats. Fast copy/paste for each day. Morning, optional. 1 to 2 lines intention for the day, 2 words. After key interaction, 30 to 60 seconds signal plus emotion, 1 word plus action taken, 1 line. Evening, 3 lines what mattered, reaction and bodily signal. 1 experiment for tomorrow, small troubleshooting notes. If motivation falls, reduce a day's task to a single 60-second scan. Consistency beats intensity. If you miss 2 days, don't restart day 1. Pick up where you left and add 1 extra audit that evening. If someone resists your boundary, rehearse the secondary statement and be ready to enforce the proportional consequence. Consistency teaches faster than argument. How to scale after 30 days. At the end of day 30, pick 2 habits that produce the clearest signal, 1 physiological, e.g., breathing ritual, 1 social, e.g., 3-line transformer or boundary script. Keep those daily and slot 1 additional advanced practice each week, longer weekly audit, voice recording review, or a 10-minute reflection deep dive. Final encouragement. 30 days is enough to convert awkward attempts into usable habits and to generate clear data about what actually helps you. Keep the evidence mindset. Treat every practice as a tiny experiment. Record 1 piece of measurable feedback and iterate. The purpose of this plan is less heroic change and more steady, repeatable improvement. The sort of change that survives busy weeks, travel, and pressure. Do the work in short bursts. Be kind to yourself in the log, and let the metrics guide small but durable redesigns of how you show up. Chapter 10. If EI 3.0 is a practice system, measurement is a compass. Without simple, repeatable metrics, you'll be guessing about progress. With them, you get signals you can act on. This chapter shows which numbers matter, how to record them fast, how to interpret change, and what to do when the data tells you to push or to rest. Keep it practical. The goal is clarity, not obsession. Pick a small set of core metrics and treat them like vital signs. Too many metrics makes tracking friction. Too few leaves you blind. I recommend these 5 as a core dashboard you can run in a notebook or a 1-page spreadsheet. Reaction time, seconds. Stopwatch from first internal signal to first outward response. Energy after meetings, 1 to 10. Rate immediately after typical meetings, then average 3 per day. Overheat incidents, count/week. Any interaction where you lost composure or acted impulsively. Generative empathy applications, count/week. Number of times you intentionally did listen, name one offer. Stabilization time, seconds. Stopwatch from first signal to felt baseline after using your breath/gesture. How to record fast. Use one row per day in a simple table with a timestamp and 5 columns, the 5 metrics above. If you want lower friction, record once per day the averages and counts. The point is consistency. If you miss a day, don't panic. Note, missed, and move on. How to compute weekly values. For reaction time and stabilization time, take the average of the daily values you logged that week. For energy after meetings, average the 3 daily scores or all scores if you log more. For overheat incidents and G uses, sum the counts for the week. Interpreting change. 2 rules make interpretation safe. Rule A, look for direction and consistency, not single swings. Rule B, treat percent change as a useful shorthand for progress, but always check absolute values too. Here's a worked example, so the math is explicit. Example, your week 1 average reaction time was 8 seconds. At week 4 is 5 seconds. The absolute improvement is 8 minus 5 is equal to 3 seconds. To compute percent improvement, divide the absolute improvement by the week 1 baseline and multiply by 100. So 3 divided by 8 is equal to 0.375. Multiply 0.375 times 100 is equal to 37.5%. So you improve reaction time by 37.5% over 4 weeks. That number is encouraging, but also ask, is 5 seconds a target for your context? If not, set the next target and plan the next micro experiments. Decision thresholds and what to do next. Use these practical heuristics after each checkpoint, weekly or days 7/14/21/30. Reaction time. If it decreases by greater than or equal to 20% from the previous checkpoint, keep the current regimen and add 1 micro challenge. For example, reduce the 3-line transformer time goal by 20%. If it is unchanged or worse, increase scan frequency, add 1 extra daily scan, and add a 2-minute breath ritual before high-stakes interactions. Energy after meetings. If the weekly average is greater than or equal to 7, keep the schedule and consider adding a slightly longer challenge, longer meeting or heavier day sandbox. If the average is between 5 to 6, add a recovery rule, 10-minute break after 2 meetings. If below 5, reduce meeting load and prioritize recovery rituals. Do not push intensity. Overheat incidents. If 2 per week, pause escalation experiments and prioritize boundary work and stabilization practice. If 0 to 1, it's safe to introduce 1 social calibration challenge. G uses. If 3/week, schedule daily low-stakes prompts, phone reminders to practice GE. If greater than or equal to 5/week and outcomes are mostly helpful, begin testing G in higher stakes contexts. Stabilization time. If it shortens by greater than or equal to 25%, keep current breath/gesture practice and experiment with applying it mid-meeting. If it remains long, revisit the gesture grid and rehearse it twice daily. Qualitative notes matter. Numbers tell you direction. Short comments tell you why. Each week add 2 lines, top 2 wins and top 2 friction points. These quick notes connect the metrics to real situations, so you don't optimize blind. Visualization, quick and effective. You don't need fancy charts. 2 simple visuals are enough. A weekly line for reaction time and a stack bar for overheat incidents versus GE uses. Even a hand-drawn spark lines row in your notebook gives pattern recognition. The visual cue helps you spot trends. Steady decline in reaction time, or a sudden jump in overheat after travel week, for example. A short troubleshooting guide. If your data looks noisy, increase sample size, log more days, rather than change strategy. Small habits have noise. Trends need more data. If metrics improve but you feel worse, check recovery metrics, sleep, exercise, downtime. Improvement without recovery is fragile. Slow down and integrate rest. If numbers stall after 2 checkpoints, pick one metric to focus on for the next 2 weeks and simplify everything else. Focus beats multitasking. If a metric improves but others worsen, reaction time down. Energy down, you are over-optimizing. Rebalance by adding recovery micro-rituals and reducing intensity. The 4-week fill exercise. Do this at the end of week 4. Fill the table above with weekly values. Compute percent change for reaction time and stabilization time using the explicit step method shown earlier. Write 2 one-line interpretations, one optimistic, what improved and why, and one corrective, what still needs work, and the next single experiment. Choose the 2 habits to keep, one physiological, one social, and write the weekly schedule for maintaining them. Decide whether to accelerate, add 1 new micro-challenge, or rest. Add 2 recovery rules based on heuristics above and write that sentence. A final ethical note: measurement is a tool, not a verdict. Use data to inform practice, not to punish yourself. Trends over time are what matter. Short-term regressions are feedback. Treat your metrics with curiosity and kindness. They are a map, not a moral score. If you keep the measurements simple, consistent, and connected to small experiments, you'll convert messy life into usable signals and build durable capacity for influence and resilience. Conclusion: EI 3.0 is not a technique you do once and forget. It's an operating system you install and refine. Small modules, awareness plus, energy regulation, narrative control, boundary engineering, social calibration, voice and pause, generative empathy, reflection, that when combined, change how you move through work and life. The point of this book was never to make you perfectly calm or endlessly kind. It was to give you repeatable tools that let you act with clarity, protect your capacity, and create useful outcomes for others, reliably, ethically, and under pressure. 3 truths to leave with. Influence is a design problem, not a feat of will. Design the environment around your attention and energy. Short rituals, clear boundaries, and tiny signals. And you will need less brute force to get results. Emotions are data, not destiny. Treat bodily signals and first narratives as useful inputs. Label them, map their context, and convert them into one small, testable action. Over time, those actions accumulate into reputations. Steady, trustworthy, effective. Empathy without an experiment is only feeling. Pair understanding with a proportional offer, and you turn care into forward motion. That small move creates dignity and produces evidence quickly. Practical next steps. Do these this week. Commit to 3 daily body scans, 60 seconds each. Log 1 dominant signal. Run the 3-line transformer once per day on a small interaction, emotion, fact, action. Use 1 boundary script in a low-stake situation and note the result. Practice the 2-minute breath plus stabilization gesture before your next 3 important conversations. Run the 3-question protocol each night for 5 days. A short checklist for sustainability. Keep metrics simple. Track 3 to 5 signals you actually use. Time box reflection. 5 minutes is enough for most events. Limit experiments. 1 variable at a time wins. Protect recovery. Influence is fragile without replenishment. Share tiny learning with 1 trusted person weekly. Ethics and limits. EI 3.0 gives power. Use it with a commitment to autonomy and dignity. Influence must never be shorthand for manipulation. Respect consent, avoid exploiting vulnerability, and use your skills to create more agency for others, not less. If you encounter real trauma or clinical distress, step back and connect people with appropriate professional help. These practices are potent, but they are not therapy. How change compounds. Habits are small loops. A 60-second scan, a 2-breath pause, 1 clear sentence. Repeated. Become the patterns that shape your days. The math of small wins is merciless. Tiny consistent improvements compound into genuine transformation. You'll notice faster decisions, fewer overheating incidents, clearer meetings, and, perhaps most importantly, more predictable energy for the people who rely on you. A final invitation. Treat EI 3.0 like an experiment you run on yourself. Measure, nudge, observe, and iterate. Be curious about surprising failures and generous about small successes. If you keep the work small, routine, and kind, influence will follow as a byproduct of steadiness and skill. Lead with attention. Regulate with practice. Act with empathy that creates options. That is the architecture of durable influence and resilient presence.